The colony of Greenhullo had 9 minutes left, and I knew it before the order finished leaving the commander's mouth. I am a fleet calculator. My name is Vresktal and my work is numbers. I do not feel the things other crew members feel. I balance the ledger. The colony below us had 12,000 people. It had no fleet. It had no defense grid worth the name. The math was simple, and simple math is honest math. I ran the equation 3 times because I always run it 3 times, and 3 times it told me the same clean thing. We would win, we would lose nothing. The colony would go dark. So we began. The cannons of the conquered Dominion warmed in their cradles. I watched the targeting solutions bloom across my screen like cold flowers. Each number was a building. Each building was a roof, and under each roof were the soft, warm shapes of a species that had never harmed us. I did not think about the shapes. I thought about the ledger. That is the trick of my work. You keep your eyes on the column and you never look out the window. The commander's name was Drool. He had 4 eyes and a habit of clicking the back 2 when he was pleased. Calculator, he said, confirm. Confirmed, I said. No defensive response detected. No fleet in range. No call for help on any channel. He clicked his back eyes. Then we proceed. We proceeded. I will not tell you what 9 minutes of orbital fire looks like. You do not need to carry that, and I do not wish to give it. I will tell you only what my screen told me. Heat, then cooling. Light, then dark. The numbers fell where the equation said they would fall. Greenhullo went quiet the way a held breath goes quiet. And that was the first wrong thing. I have been part of 17 operations, 17 worlds. Every world screams. Every world fills the air with begging, with Mayday signals, with parents shouting names of children into channels that no one will ever answer. It is the sound of a dying place reaching out for any hand at all. It is, in its way, the most ordinary sound in the galaxy. Greenhullo did not scream. I sat in my chair with my instruments and I listened to 12,000 people not call for help. Not one Mayday, not one plea, not one frightened voice asking the dark for mercy. They knew they were ending and they sent nothing. They simply went into the quiet, calm and shut as a closed door. My instrument fingers were tapping the edge of the console. Tap, tap, tap. I made them stop. I did not know why they were doing that. Operation complete, said Drool. He sounded happy. Log it as a success. I opened the log. My fingers hovered over the field. And then a small light blinked on my secondary screen, the one I almost never check, the one that catches stray transmissions in the seconds before a world dies. There was a transmission, one, sent out from Greenhullo 11 seconds before the end. Not inward to us begging, outward, to somewhere else, to the deep dark beyond the system on a frequency aimed at no star I could name. I pulled it up. My translation software took the human words and chewed on them and gave me a literal rendering. And then it gave me a note that said the phrase was an idiom and the meaning was uncertain. The message was 5 words long. Tell them we said hi. I read it twice. I read it a 3rd time because I read everything 3 times. It made no sense. A dying colony with no fleet and no help spends its final seconds not begging, not cursing, but sending a cheerful little greeting out into empty space. Tell them we said hi. Tell whom? Hi from whom? It was the message of someone waving at a friend across a room, not the message of a world being unmade. I almost laughed. The wrongness of it was almost funny. Drool's voice cut across my thoughts. Calculator, the log. A moment, Commander. There was an outbound transmission. His back eyes went still. Contents. A greeting, I said. 5 words. It appears to be a friendly message sent to no specific receiver. There is no military content, no coordinates, no call for aid. Then it is nothing, he clicked. File it, log the success. I should have argued. I want you to know that. I sat there with a thing in my hands that did not fit any equation I had ever run, and the part of me that lives for the clean column should have stood up and said this does not balance. But I was tired, and the column was clean, and the commander wanted his word. So I logged the success. The galaxy is large and old, and full of species who have grown fat on the simple idea that the strong eat the weak. The conquered dominion is one of those species. We are not cruel exactly. We are efficient. We see a colony that cannot defend itself, and we see a number we can move into our column, and we move it, and we sleep well. We had done this many times. We expected to do it many more. We did not yet know what humanity was. We knew them as a young species. Loud, soft, scattered across a few hundred worlds, no great fleet, no terrible weapon, nothing to fear. The threat files barely mentioned them. I had read the entry myself once. 3 lines, harmless, cooperative, of minor strategic interest. 3 lines. I closed the log and leaned back in my chair and let my breathing slow. And as it slowed, the message came back to me unbidden, the way a small stone in your shoe comes back to you with every step. Tell them we said hi. There is a way of saying those words that is a wave goodbye. And there is a way of saying those words that is a hand on a shoulder, a promise, a thing one person says to another when they both know that the second person will finish what the first could not. I did not know which way Green Hello had meant it. I told myself it did not matter. I was wrong about that, and the silence already knew it. We held our position above the dead world for the night cycle, because the commander wanted to scan for survivors and find none, and confirm the cleanness of the work. The scans ran. They found nothing. 12,000 quiet shapes and not a single heartbeat among them. But here is the thing I did not say to anyone. The small wrong thing that lived under my plates for the whole night cycle and would not let me rest. When I had pulled the outbound transmission, I had checked its path. Where had it been aimed? My software gave me a vector, a long thin line drawn out from Green Hello into the dark, toward no star, no station, no known human world. It pointed straight back along the path our own fleet had taken to arrive. It pointed home. I told myself this meant nothing, a random frequency, a panicked finger on a console. There were 1,000 harmless reasons a dying signal might happen to point the way we had come. The equation does not care about coincidence. The column was clean. I ran it a 4th time, which I never do, and it was still clean, and I should have felt better, and I did not. Across the bridge, the comms officer, a young one named Sket, made a small sound. I looked over. He was frowning at his board. "Calculator," he said, "do you hear that?" "Hear what?" "Under the static, on the human frequency, the one the colony used." He tilted his head. "There's something looping." I patched it through to my own station. For a moment there was only the hiss of dead air, the ordinary sound of a channel with no one left to speak on it. And then very faint, very soft under the static, a voice, a human voice, calm, almost warm. Repeating the same 5 words on a loop, over and over, patient as a clock. "Tell them we said hi, tell them we said hi, tell them we said hi." "That's the recording bouncing off the debris," I said. "An echo, it will fade." "Right," said Sket, "an echo." He did not sound convinced, neither was I. I shut off my speaker and the voice went away. But it did not really go away, because I could still hear it in the quiet behind my own thoughts, that calm, patient little greeting riding under everything like a current under still water. I want to be honest with you, because there is no point in being anything else now. In that moment I felt something I do not have a clean word for. It was not fear, not yet. It was the feeling you get when you finish a sum and the answer comes out wrong, and you know your math is perfect, and so the wrongness must be in the world itself. It was the feeling of a column that balances on paper but not in your gut. We had destroyed one human colony. The math said we had won. The math said we had lost nothing and gained a tidy number, and the math, I would learn, was the only liar on that bridge. Because out in the dark, along the path we had come, the message was already traveling. Not a cry for help. Humans, I would come to understand, do not cry for help. They send witnesses. They send a calm voice into the deep that says, simply, "Here is what was done, and here is who we are, and now you will learn the second part of that sentence whether you wish to or not." Tell them we said hi. I did not sleep that night cycle. I sat at my station and I watched the dead world turn slowly beneath us, and I told myself, again and again, that the equation was clean and the operation was a success, and there was nothing out there in the dark to fear. I almost believed it. Then the morning report came in, and a supply hauler at the edge of the system had missed its scheduled check-in, and a small cold thing began to uncurl in my chest, and somewhere under the static the voice kept saying hello. Archivist Unu had spent his whole life closing forms, and he had every reason to believe this one would close like all the others. I should explain who I am before I explain what I found, because what I found changed me, and I want you to understand the creature it changed. My name is Unu. I am a historian of the conquered dominion, which is a grand title for a being whose job is mostly to write one true sentence about each thing the fleet does, and then file it away so that later beings can pretend they understand the past. I am thorough. I am dull. I have never in my long, quiet life felt my own pulse, the way I felt it the day I opened the human file. The victory at Green Hello had been logged. Commander Drool wanted a clean historical entry to match his clean operation, and the task of writing it fell to me. This was ordinary work. A species had been struck. I would write one line about the species, one line about the strike, and one line about the strategic value, and then I would close the form and go to my evening meal. I pulled the galactic threat assessment files on humanity to copy the standard entry. The file was flagged. Now you must understand, and my work flags are common. Most of them are dull. This material is outdated. This entry needs review. This figure was corrected in a later report. I have seen 10,000 flags and ignored 9,000 of them. This flag was not dull. This flag had been placed by 3 species at once, and not ordinary species. These were 3 of the elder peoples, the ancient ones, the ones who were old when our own sons were still gathering themselves out of dust. The conquered does not even fully believe in the elder peoples. We treat them as legend, as the fossils of a deeper time, as names spoken to frighten the young. To find 1 elder seal on a file would have been a marvel. To find 3 altogether, all on a file about a young, soft, scattered species like humanity, was a thing I had never seen and did not have a place for. 3 of the oldest powers in the galaxy had reached out across all that time and welded this door shut. I sat very still and I looked at that flag and I felt the first thread of something pull tight in my chest. I am not a brave creature. I straightened the data crystals on my desk. I lined them up in a neat row, edge to edge, perfectly even. I do this when I am uneasy. My hands seemed to know things my mind would rather not. I should have stopped there. The seal was a warning, and warnings exist to be obeyed. But I am a historian, and the one terrible vice of the historian is that a sealed door is, to us, simply a door that has not yet been opened. I opened it. The file did not give itself up easily. It came in fragments, in broken pieces, in records that had been split and scattered as if someone had tried very hard to make sure no single mind could ever hold the whole shape at once. I gathered the fragments through the long night cycle, and I fitted them together, piece by careful piece, and the picture they made was one I have not been able to put down since. There was a war. The records called it the incident at Hollow Spine. The dry word, incident, sat on it like a thin blanket over something enormous. It began, the fragment said, with a species called the Veth. The Veth were a proud people, a strong people, a people with a fleet that dwarfed anything the conquered had ever fielded. They were not a young, soft, scattered species. They were a power. They considered themselves, the records suggested, one of the great powers of their age. And one day, long ago, a Veth fleet encountered a human convoy. It was not a war fleet. This is the detail the fragments return to again and again, as if the record itself could not stop turning it over. The human convoy was a medical convoy. It carried doctors and supplies and the soft cargo of mercy, bound for some distant human world struck by sickness. It was not armed in any way that mattered. It posed no threat to anyone. The Veth fired on it anyway. Why, the records do not fully say. Perhaps a misunderstanding. Perhaps simple appetite, the old galactic appetite, the strong eating the weak because the weak were there to be eaten. The reason did not survive. Only the act survived. The Veth ended the human convoy in the cold and the dark, and then they went home, satisfied, certain they had taught a young species its place. I read this part and I thought of Green Hello. I thought of drool clicking his back eyes. I thought of a clean column and a logged success. My hands found the crystals on my desk and squared them again and again, and they would not stay square because my hands had begun, very slightly, to shake. I read on. The Veth are not in our threat files. I had assumed when I began that this was because they were minor or extinct from some natural cause or simply too old to matter. So I searched for the Veth homeworld, expecting a quiet planet, a faded people, a footnote. There is no Veth homeworld. I do not mean that it is hidden. I do not mean that it is lost. I mean that there is, in the place where the records say the Veth homeworld stood, no world. There is no proud people there. There is no fleet. There is nothing of the Veth anywhere in the galaxy at all, no colony, no outpost, no single living member of that great and ancient power. They are not anywhere. I sat with that for a long time. The strong, proud Veth, who had fired on a convoy of doctors and gone home satisfied, were simply gone, root and branch, as if a hand had reached down and quietly erased the entire sentence of them from the book of the galaxy. And in the place where their homeworld had been, the fragments told me, there was now a single structure, a memorial, and the memorial had not been built by the Veth, for there were no Veth left to build it. It had been built by humans. I want you to sit with the strangeness of that the way I had to. The species that had been wronged, the species whose doctors had been ended in the dark, had come to the ashes of the species that wronged them and built, with their own hands, a memorial, a place of remembering, a marker over the silence. I found the inscription. It had been recorded in the fragments, in the original human script and in translation, and I read the translation, and then I read it again, because the first reading had not gone all the way down into me and the second one did. The inscription was not a curse. It was not a boast. It was not a list of crimes or a cold record of what had been done. It was, of all things, an apology. The humans had carved an apology onto the grave of the people who had wronged them. I did not understand it, not at first. I thought foolishly that I had mistranslated that the soft, strange humans were sorry for what had befallen the Veth, that this was some gesture of mercy or regret. I straightened my crystals. I read it a third time. And then I understood, and the understanding went through me like cold water poured down the spine. The apology was not for the Veth. It was not addressed to the people in the grave at all. It was addressed outward to whoever might come after, to whoever might one day stand on that silent ash and read those words. It was an apology written for the future. It said, in the plain and terrible patience of the human tongue, we are sorry it had to be this way, and it was not sorrow for the Veth. It was a warning, dressed in the clothes of regret, left like a note pinned to a door, addressed to the next species who might be tempted to do to a human convoy what the Veth had done. We are sorry, we did not want this, but this is what happens, do not make us do it again. I understood, sitting alone in my quiet office with my neat shaking rows of crystals, that I was reading the gravestone of a great power, written by the people that great power had wronged, and that the gravestone was not really about the dead at all. It was about us. It had been waiting in that sealed file, behind 3 elder seals, for exactly this moment. For a calculator to run a clean equation, for a commander to click his pleased back eyes, for a colony to go dark without a single cry for help, for a historian to come, at last, to write one dull true sentence and to find, instead, the one true sentence the whole galaxy had been trying to keep from him. I closed the file. My hands were shaking so badly now that I gave up on the crystals entirely, and simply pressed them flat against the cool surface of my desk to make them stop. Green Hello had not screamed. I had read the operation report. The calculator Vresktal had noted it as an anomaly. No mayday, no plea. 12,000 people going calm and quiet into the dark, sending out instead a single cheerful greeting, 5 soft words aimed back along the road we had come. I had thought when I read his report that it was strange. Now I knew it was not strange at all. It was the most consistent thing in the galaxy. It was the Veth all over again. It was a species that does not beg, that does not bargain after the worst has been done, that does not accept a loss the way every other species accepts a loss. It was a species that builds memorials, that sends witnesses, that writes apologies on graves. I thought of the 3 elder seals, those ancient powers reaching across deep time to hold this door shut, and I understood now that they had not sealed the file to protect a secret. They had sealed it to protect us, the young and the foolish and the efficient, from the one piece of knowledge that, once known, cannot be unknown. The Veth had been a great power. They had fired on a human convoy. And now there was no Veth homeworld, no Veth fleet, no Veth anywhere, only a single human structure standing over the silence with an apology carved into its face. I had to warn Commander Drool. I had to reach the fleet. They were still out there, holding position over the dead world of Greenhello, congratulating themselves on a clean and balanced column, with no idea at all what they had just begun. I reached for my communications panel and my message would not send, not blocked by the seals, not refused by the network. There was simply no signal from the fleet to answer it. The fleet had gone quiet as Greenhello, as quiet as the place where the Veth homeworld used to be. I sat in my office with 3 elder seals glowing on my dead screen and a grave's apology burning behind my eyes, and far away, where my warning could not reach, the second part of humanity's sentence had already begun to be written. The supply hauler missed its check-in, and that was how it started, the slow coming apart of everything I believed about the world. I am Vresktal again, and I had not slept. I want you to picture me at my station, a calculator who had run a clean equation, watching the first small variable slip out of place. A hauler at the edge of the system, due to report, simply did not. No distress signal, no debris, no flare of weapons fire on any sensor we owned. It was just not there anymore. The way a word you were about to say is just not there anymore. "Sensor fault," said Drool when I brought it to him. He clicked his back eyes, but the click was a little slower than usual. "Haulers miss check-ins. Log it. Move on." I logged it. I did not move on. You cannot move on from a column that has stopped balancing, and mine had stopped. The next thing happened 4 hours later, and it was worse because it was not an absence. It was a presence. A relay station at the system's edge, a small automated thing crewed by a single operator named Brennan, answered a routine query. This was normal. What was not normal was the voice that answered it. The operator, Brennan, was not the one who replied. I knew Brennan's voice. I had heard it on 100 dull check-ins. The voice that answered the query was human, calm, polite, almost friendly. It used Brennan's clearance codes, every one of them perfectly, and it spoke to us in the easy conversational tone of someone who had all the time in the world. "Relay station confirms receipt," said the human voice. "Everything's fine here. Lovely day. How are you all doing up there?" The bridge went still. "Who is this?" said Drool. His voice had lost its click entirely. "Just the relay operator," said the voice, warm as a hand on a shoulder. "Just doing my job. You go on with yours. We'll talk soon." The channel closed. I checked the records. No ship had docked at that relay station. No ship had approached it. No vessel of any kind had crossed the sensor field around it in either direction. There was no way, by any equation I could build, for a human being to be standing on that station speaking into that channel. And yet one was. "Send a patrol," said Drool. "Now." We sent a patrol. The patrol reached the relay station and found it empty. No Brennan. No human voice. No sign of struggle. No sign of anything wrong at all. The station was clean and quiet and perfectly in order, and the only thing the patrol found that did not belong was a small note left on the operator's console, written in the human script, in ordinary human ink. The patrol read it to us over the channel. "Thank you for visiting. Please come again." I sat at my station and felt the cold thing in my chest uncurl a little further. This is the part I have struggled ever since to make my own people understand. The humans were not attacking our fleet. Do you see? That is what we kept waiting for, all of us, Drool most of all. We waited for ships. We waited for weapons. We waited for the thing that the strong always do to the strong. The open clash, the trading of fire, the equation of force against force that we knew how to run. It never came. Instead, they took our certainty apart, one small piece at a time, with their bare hands and their calm voices and their terrible patience. A targeting officer named Holloway went to his quarters at the end of his shift and found that his door would not lock. Inside, nothing was missing, but his sidearm, which he kept on a shelf by his bunk, had been taken apart, disassembled, every piece laid out on his blanket in a neat row in order, the way you would lay out a thing to clean it, and then put back together. Wrong. Deliberately, carefully wrong. The pieces in an order that meant the weapon would never fire again, assembled with a patience that was somehow far more frightening than any threat. No one had entered his quarters. The logs were clear. No one had come, and no one had gone, and yet someone had sat on Holloway's bunk in the quiet and lovingly ruined his weapon and left it for him to find. Holloway did not report for his next shift. We found him in the mess, sitting very still, staring at nothing, his hands flat on the table to keep them from shaking. I knew that gesture. I had been making it myself for 2 days. They learned our names. That was the next thing and the worst. It came in small ways. A message in the rations, slipped into a sealed container that no human hand could have reached. A name written on a wall in a corridor with no cameras. A voice on a private channel, speaking to one officer alone, using that officer's name, the name of that officer's family, the name of the world that officer had been born on. Never a threat. Never a single word of violence. Just the soft, terrible proof that they knew, that they had learned every one of us. That they knew exactly who had been on this bridge when the order was given, and who had run the equation, and who had clicked his pleased back eyes, and who had logged the success. They were not ending us. That was the thing Drool could not understand, the thing that broke him in the end. They were letting us know that they could. They had reached into the most guarded heart of our fleet, learned every name, touched every private place, and they had chosen so far to do nothing with it but make sure we understood. It was the most frightening thing I have ever experienced, and not a single weapon had been fired. Drool ordered a full lockdown. He ordered the whole fleet to seal itself, to trust nothing, to scan every chamber. We scanned. We found nothing. We were a fleet of thousands, armored and armed, hunting for a presence that left notes in our rations and apologies on our walls and could not be found by any instrument we owned. I worked through the night cycle trying to build an equation that could hold what was happening. I could not. Every variable I placed, they removed. Every certainty I leaned on, they leaned back gently and let me feel how little it would hold. And then, near the end of that long cycle, I returned to my own station, and I saw what was written on my console. It was my name. Vresktal, written on the surface of my own console in my own script, in handwriting I knew better than any other handwriting in the galaxy, because it was mine. My own hand had written my own name on my own station, and I had no memory of doing it. I sat down very slowly. I looked at my hands. I thought of the moment, 2 days before, when my instrument fingers had been tapping the edge of the console, and I had made them stop and had not known why they were doing it. I did not know any more where I ended and the quiet began. That, I understood, was the point. That was exactly the point. They did not need to defeat us. They needed only to teach us that we could no longer trust the one instrument every calculator must trust above all others, which is his own certainty. Across the bridge, the comms officer, young Sket, began to laugh. It was not the laugh of a creature who had lost his mind to fear, though I thought so at first. It was worse than that. It was the helpless, hollow laugh of someone who has finally understood the joke, who sees the whole shape of the thing at last and cannot do anything but laugh at how perfectly, how patiently, it has all been arranged. Sket, I said, what is it, what? He pointed at his board with a shaking limb. Listen, he said, it's been there the whole time, under the static, it never stopped. We just stopped hearing it. He patched it through to the bridge to all of us, and drool did not stop him, because drool was past stopping anything. Under the static, faint and calm and patient as a clock, the human voice was still speaking. The same voice from the dead colony. The same 5 words from the very first transmission, the one I had logged and dismissed, the one I had told myself meant nothing. Tell them we said hi, tell them we said hi, tell them we said hi. It had been playing the whole time, from the first minute, while we congratulated ourselves on a clean column, while the hauler vanished and the relay answered in a stranger's calm and Holloway's weapon was lovingly ruined and our names were learned one by one. Underneath all of it this whole time, the greeting had been looping, patient, sure of itself, waiting for us to grow quiet enough to finally hear it. I understood now that it had never been an echo. It was a countdown that did not count down in numbers. It counted down in understanding. It would keep playing, soft and warm and patient, until every single one of us understood exactly what had been done and exactly what we were, and only then would the second part of humanity's sentence be allowed to finish. Drool slumped in his chair. His 4 eyes had stopped clicking entirely. What do they want? He said to no one. We won. The math said we won. What do they want? I did not answer him, because I had finally understood the answer, and the answer was the most frightening thing of all. They did not want anything. That was the whole terrible truth of it. There was no demand. There was no list of terms. There was nothing we could give them and nothing we could take back. They were not here to win the way we won, with a column and a number and a logged success. They were here to be witnesses. They were here to make absolutely certain that we, every one of us, learned why their convoy of doctors had once been fired on by a great proud power named the Veth, and what had happened to that great proud power afterward, and why there was no Veth homeworld anymore, only a human memorial with an apology carved on its face. We had read the ending of that story already, in a sealed file behind 3 elder seals, though we had not known we were reading it. Now we were living it. Under the static, the voice said hi and said hi and said hi, and the dead world of Greenhollow turned beneath us, calm and quiet and not screaming, and somewhere out in the dark the witnesses were waiting, patient as graves, for us to be ready to learn the rest. Here is the part nobody in that fleet understood, so let me be the one to tell it, since I'm the one who watched their colony go dark and didn't send a single call for help. My name is Mara. I want to say that plainly because there's been a lot of fear flying around lately and fear makes things blurry, and I'd like to be one clear thing in all of this. I'm a human. I'm the picket, and I was not on Greenhollow when your fleet decided 12,000 of my people made a tidy number for your column. I was out here, alone, on a small ship at the edge of the system, which is the job nobody wants and somebody always has to do. The early warning, the eyes in the dark. I watched your cannons warm. I watched them fire. I watched my home go quiet, building by building, roof by roof, and I want you to know exactly what I did in that moment, because I think it's the single most important thing for you to understand about us. I did not call for help. I had a channel open. I could have screamed into it. I could have begged some passing power for rescue, the way your 17 other worlds begged, the way every species in this galaxy begs when the strong come to eat the weak. The instinct is there in us too, you know. We feel it. I felt it. My whole body wanted to cry out into the dark for someone, anyone, to come and stop what was happening. I didn't, because that's not what we do. We don't call for help, we call for witnesses. There's a difference, and it's the whole difference, and your fleet is learning it now the slow way. When the worst happens to a human, we don't reach out for a hand to save us. We reach out for an eye to see it. We send the record. We send the truth of what was done, out into the deep, along the road the ones who did it came in on, so that it follows them home. So that's what I sent. 5 words. You've heard them by now. You've heard them under your static for days. I sent them because they're the truest thing my people know how to say, and because the ones who needed to hear them would understand, even if your translation software choked on the idiom. Tell them we said hi. It's not a greeting. I know your machines read it as one. It's not goodbye either. It's the thing one of us says to the rest of us when we both know that I can't finish this, but you can, and you will. It's a hand on a shoulder passed across the whole dark galaxy. It means I'm done, but we are not, and now it's your turn. I sat out here on my little picket ship, and I watched my home go dark, and I made coffee. I want to be honest about that, because it sounds cold, and it isn't. The coffee dispenser on this ship had been broken for a week, just sitting there, jammed, useless, the one small ordinary thing I'd been meaning to fix and never had time for. And in that moment, with 12,000 people going quiet below me, I did not weep and I did not scream. I got up and I went to the broken coffee dispenser and I took it apart with my hands. My hands were shaking, I'll give you that. They shook the whole time. But they knew what to do, the way hands do, and I cleaned the jam and I reseated the part that had slipped and I put it back together right and I pressed the button and it worked. The light came on. The machine hummed. Hot coffee, for the first time in a week, into a chipped cup with a faded picture on the side. I didn't fix the coffee machine because I wanted coffee. I fixed it because if I had let my hands be still in that moment, if I had let myself feel the whole size of what was happening below me all at once, I would not have survived it as a thinking creature. So my hands found the smallest broken thing within reach and they fixed it, because a human who is grieving the unbearable will always reach for the nearest thing that can be made right. It's how we stay whole. It's how we keep our shape when the universe tries to take it. There was a name I lost on Green Hello. I'm not going to say it. I fixed a coffee machine instead. And I think you understand by now why those two things are the same thing. So let me tell you what your fleet doesn't get, what the Veth didn't get, what every proud power that ever fired on us first didn't get until it was the last thing they never got. You think we're soft. You read your 3 little lines in the threat file, young species, loud, scattered, no great fleet, no terrible weapon, harmless, of minor strategic interest, and on every measure you respect, you're right. We are not the strongest. We are not the smartest. We are not the oldest or the most advanced. We do not have the biggest fleet or the deepest science or the most beautiful cities. Here is the one thing we have that you do not. We do not stop. That's it. That's the whole secret the elder people sealed behind 3 locks. That's the thing they were trying to keep your young, foolish hands from ever touching. It isn't a weapon. It isn't a fleet. It's a single fact about how we are built, and the fact is this. When you do the worst thing to us, we do not break, and we do not bargain, and we do not accept the loss the way every other species in this galaxy accepts the loss. Every other species, when the strong come and take a world, grieves and accepts it and folds the loss into the long, sad history of the weak. It is the oldest pattern in the galaxy. The strong eat. The weak are eaten. The weak mourn and move on because what else can they do? We don't move on. We treat your worst thing as a problem with a solution. We treat extinction, our own, as a project with a deadline that we simply refuse to meet. And then we get to work, calm and patient and tender as someone fixing a broken coffee machine. And we do not raise our voices, and we do not weep where you can see, and we do not ever stop until the thing that was done has been answered all the way down to the root. The Veth learned this. They fired on our doctors. Our convoy of mercy, our soft cargo, the gentlest thing we had, ended in the cold for no reason that survived the telling. And the Veth went home, satisfied, certain they'd taught the young their place. And we came. We did not come with a great fleet because we did not have one. We came the way you're watching us come now. We came patient. We came into the most guarded places. We learned every name. We took apart their certainty the way I took apart that dispenser, piece by piece, laid out neat, and we did not stop, through one generation and the next, because we do not have a generation that says enough. We just kept being there, calm and unhurried and impossible to find, until the proud and ancient Veth understood, all the way down, what they had done. And then there were no Veth. And we built them a memorial with our own hands, on the ash of their world, because we are not cruel, you understand. That's the part that should frighten you most of all. We aren't monsters. We don't enjoy it. We grieve the whole time. We came to that silent place and we carved an apology into the stone. And the apology was real, every word of it. We truly were sorry it had to be that way. But the apology wasn't for the Veth. It was for you, for whoever came next. For whatever proud, young, efficient power would one day look at a human colony, run a clean equation, and decide that 12,000 of us made a tidy number. We left it there like a note on a door. We're sorry. We didn't want this, but this is what happens. Please don't make us do it again. You made us do it again. I sat out here on my picket ship, and I made my coffee, and I watched my home go dark. And then I opened my channel, finally, and I answered the calculator who'd been listening to my 5 words loop under his static for days. The one named Vresktal. The one whose own hands wrote his own name on his own console while his mind looked away, because part of him already understood, the way the body always understands before the mind will let it. You wanted to know what we want, I said to him, calm, almost gentle across all that dark. You said you won. The math said you won, and you can't understand why we haven't shown you a fleet. He didn't answer. I didn't need him to. We don't want anything, I told him. There's nothing you can give us. There's nothing you can give back. That's what makes us different from everyone you've ever eaten. We're not here to win the way you win. We don't have a column. We're not here to take a world or sign a treaty or settle a score. I took a sip of my coffee. It was good. It was the first good thing in days. We're here to be witnesses, I said. We're here to make absolutely sure that every single one of you learns why our convoy of doctors should never have been touched, and what happens to the proud thing that touches us anyway, and why there's no Veth homeworld in your sky anymore. You've already read the ending. You found it in your sealed file. You just didn't know you were reading your own story. And then I told him the thing that I think finally broke whatever was left of his clean and balanced world. The true meaning of the words carved on that distant grave. The words he'd mistranslated as mercy. The apology on the Veth memorial, I said. Your historian thought we were sorry for them. We weren't. The whole inscription only ever meant one thing, and it's this. I set down my cup. We forgave them. It didn't help. The channel hummed. Somewhere far away, a calculator sat very still with his hands flat on a console to stop them shaking. The same gesture I'd made over a coffee machine. The same gesture his targeting officer had made in the mess. The one gesture that every thinking creature makes when it finally touches the size of the thing it's standing inside. We forgave them. It didn't help. That's the warning. That's the whole warning the galaxy spent an age trying to keep you from hearing. Forgiveness was never the part that saved the Veth, because forgiveness was never the part that mattered. We can forgive you completely, sincerely, with our whole soft hearts, and grieve you while we do it. And it will not stop what comes next. Because we don't stop. We were never able to. It isn't a choice we make, and it isn't a cruelty we choose. It's just the shape of us, the thing under everything, the current under the static, the hands that fix the broken machine while the mind refuses to break. You destroyed one human colony. Now you get to learn the second half of that sentence, and I'm sorry. I really, truly am. But you made us do it again. The conquered Dominion's high command did the smart thing, and the smart thing was far too late, and somewhere in the deepest part of me I had already known it would be. I am Vresktal, and this is the last of it, the part I have to tell even though telling it costs me something I will never get back. The human, Mara, had spoken to me across the dark, and her words had gone all the way down into the place where my equations live, and they had stopped balancing forever. Word of what was happening to our fleet reached the High Command at last, light years away in the safe, bright heart of the Dominion. And the High Command, who are not foolish, who are very good at the smart thing, looked at the fragments my colleague Unu had pried out from behind 3 elder seals, and they understood, far faster than poor broken drool ever could, exactly what we had begun. So they did the smart thing. They disavowed our fleet. They cut us loose, declared the strike on Green Hello an unauthorized act, a rogue commander, a mistake that did not represent the Dominion. And then they reached out to humanity with open hands. They offered reparations. They offered treaties. They offered to rebuild Green Hello tenfold, to pour the wealth of the Dominion into the soft soil of one small colony until it was 100 times the world it had been. I watched the offers go out. I want to tell you that I had hope when I saw them. I did not. I had read the file. I had heard Mara's voice. I knew the offers were a creature trying to argue with the tide. The High Command had made one last error, the same error we had all made from the very first clean equation, and it was this. They thought the message had been addressed to them. They thought if we apologize loudly enough, if we pay enough, if we hand back enough, the column will balance and the thing will end. But the message was never to them. It was never a demand. There was nothing to negotiate because Mara had told me the truth, and the truth was that they did not want anything, and you cannot buy back a thing from someone who has not asked you for anything at all. I opened the channel to Mara one last time. I do not fully know why. Perhaps because I was the calculator, the one who had run the equation, the one whose name had been written on his own console by his own hand. Perhaps because I needed to hear it from her directly. The High Command is offering everything, I said. Reparations, treaties. They will rebuild your world tenfold. Take it, please. Whatever this is, let it end. For a moment there was only the soft hum of the channel, and under it, fainter now, the loop still playing, still patient. Tell them we said hi. You still don't understand, she said. She did not say it cruelly. She said it the way you would say it to a child who had asked the same gentle wrong question for the 10th time. You think I want your fleet destroyed? Don't you? I asked. It was the only equation I had left. No, said Mara. That's the part none of you can compute. A destroyed fleet is a number, Vresktal, and numbers get forgotten. Your column has 1,000 numbers in it already, 1,000 worlds, 1,000 species you ate and balanced and filed away and never thought of again. If I end your fleet, I become one more line in someone else's ledger. Another loss folded into the long, sad history of the week. I said nothing. I was beginning at last to understand. I don't want you destroyed, she said. I want you to go home. The words made no sense to me, and then, slowly, terribly, they made perfect sense, the way the worst things always do. Intact, she went on, soft and certain. Every one of you, every officer alive, Drool, Sket, Holloway with his ruined weapon, you with your equations. I want you to fly home through all that dark, whole and breathing, and I want you to carry the story with you. Because a destroyed fleet is forgotten, but a fleet that comes home and tells the truth, that is never forgotten. That is the thing the whole galaxy remembers. That is how we make ourselves unforgettable. I understood then what my sentence was to be. It was not ending. It was living. I would fly home, whole and breathing, and I would spend the rest of my long life as two things at once. The calculator who certified the strike on Green Hello as a clean success, and the witness who has to tell everyone, for the rest of his days, exactly why that was the worst thing he ever computed. That was the punishment, not silence. Memory, not an ending. A telling, repeated until the end of me so that no calculator who comes after will ever run that clean and honest equation again without hearing my voice underneath it, the way I will always hear hers underneath my static. Go home, Vresktal, she said. Tell them why we're feared, not because we're strong. We're not. Tell them it's because we don't stop and because we'll forgive you with our whole hearts while we don't stop, and because forgiveness was never the part that mattered. Tell them we built the Vetha Memorial. Tell them we'll build you one too if you make us, and we'll mean every sorry word. Drool gave the order to withdraw. There was nothing else to give. The fleet turned its back on the dead world of Green Hello and began the long flight home, whole and breathing, every officer alive, carrying the story like a stone none of us would ever be allowed to set down. The loop under the static did not follow us. It did not need to. It had already gone all the way down into every one of us. We carried it now in our own quiet. The 5 words that were never a greeting and never goodbye. The hand on the shoulder passed across the dark. I have told this story many times since. I tell it to the young calculators now, the ones who look at a soft, scattered species and see a tidy number for a clean column. I make them sit and I make them listen, and I tell them about the Veth, and the memorial, and the apology that was a warning, and the world that does not exist anymore. I tell them about Mara and her broken coffee machine, and the way she fixed it with shaking hands while her home went dark, because that small thing holds the whole truth of it if you are willing to see. And then I tell them the last thing, the thing she said to me on the long flight home, on the very last open channel before the dark swallowed her picket ship and her voice for good. I had asked her because I am a calculator and I cannot help but ask what she would do now. Alone, out there, the last of Green Hello, whether she would grieve or rest or finally let her hands be still. She laughed, soft and warm and tired. And then I heard, faintly, the hum of a machine and the sound of hot coffee into a chipped cup, and I understood that she had no intention of letting her hands be still. Not ever, because that is not what we are, she had said, and that is not what she would be. I'm going to open a channel, she said, to the next colony, the next picket. The long line of us that runs all the way across the dark, world to world, hand to hand. I'm going to send them the only call my people have ever needed to send. And what call is that? I asked, though I already knew. I had heard it under my static for days. I would hear it for the rest of my life. She told me anyway. She told me because she wanted me to carry it home, intact, every word, and tell it to everyone forever, so that no one would ever forget why humanity was feared across the galaxy. It was not a cry for help. We do not send those. It was a call for witnesses. 5 soft words riding out into the deep along the road the proud ones always come in on, so that the truth would follow them home. Tell them we said hi. And then her channel closed, and the dark took her voice, and I turned my face toward home with the whole weight of the telling settling onto me, calm and patient and impossible to set down. We had destroyed one human colony, and we had learned, all the way down to the root, exactly why they are feared. I am still learning it. I think I always will be. Tell them we said hi.